Hey, everybody. By the way, I want to say thank you to Thompson and Technocom for sponsoring today's event, and appreciate everybody stopping in. And today we're going to talk about a couple things, and it may be a little different. Before we get started, though, I wanted to share with you about Zoom that I've learned certain terminology. I don't know if you've heard things like Zoom bombing, where people somehow randomly get on these Zoom meetings, or another Zoom bomb is when your significant other apparently walks behind you and they don't realize you're on a video and they're in the robe. So we're learning all kinds of interesting things. In fact, if I said the word social distancing to you a few months ago, you'd look at me like I have three heads, but now it's a new normal. And so we're learning as we go through this. And not to mention that you should always wear pants and not just your dress shirt. I learned that the hard way. So before we get into the session today, I'm going to split this into two different areas. The first is personal, and the second is going to be best practices that you can apply in your business, whether you're a sole proprietor, a solopreneur, a leader, or even an employee for that matter. These are some things that I want you to think differently in terms of your business. But let's think differently first with us personally. So when we talk about this, I'm going to say something that's might be a little bit depressing. There's no guarantee for tomorrow. There just isn't. And that goes for your job, that goes for your business, or even our lives. And even though that may not sound so motivational, here's the fact. The fact is that's not new. That's been a rule that's been around, and it's going to continue to be around as generations come and go. When things get difficult, though, here's the challenge. We always turn to the what if scenarios. Well, what if this thing keeps us on lockdown for 6 months? Or what if this, what if that? And that's driven by fear, and that's driven by uncertainty, which isn't really necessarily a bad thing per se, because uncertainty through fear actually protects us. You know, we're genetically predisposed to be aware of dangers, and that's what kept us alive thousands and millions of years ago. So the pandemic right now has also become a distraction for a lot of people. You know, you go online, you'll find any COVID expert you can imagine just on your own Facebook page. It used to be your neighbor Bob, but now apparently he knows everything there is to know. And what this does professionally, not just personally, is it takes our eyes off the ball. It takes your eyes off the ball because we get distracted with the things that we should focus on in terms of our customers and in terms of our jobs and our business. And we let these fears control us. So let's talk through that real quick. There's actually only two fears that you were born with: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Fear of falling, fear of loud noises. And as an adult, we begin to have more fears than just that. So what changes? And the answer is ego. Ego is one of those things that can destroy us. And it's not because ego is a bad thing. Ego must be in control. Ego must have certainty. And when you throw in things that are uncertain, your ego takes over and says, I can't accept that. I need to be in control. So as humans, we crave this certainty. And uncertainty breeds the fear. And that's the problem. Now, there's two types of fears that are out there. The first is authentic fears. And that would be like Joe Exotic throwing a lion in your back seat, you know, or if you watch Talladega Nights, got the cougar in the car. And that's a legit fear. You feel like you're going to die for real. And what does it do? Your body protects you. Tunnel vision, time slows down, your heart speeds up, all the blood rushes to your brain and lungs. And that's a good thing. That's what keeps you alive. But then there's another fear, and it's inauthentic fear. And the challenge with this is inauthentic fear feels like authentic. You feel sometimes like you're going to die. The what if takes over. But even though it's plausible, it's not necessarily likely. In business, it's happened probably in your career at some point when your boss says, I need to see you in my office Monday morning. Well, that weekend, it's the best weight loss program you've ever been on because you're worried. What if this? What if I do? Did I say something? Did I not say something? Whatever it might be. I know for me, like if let's say I have a pain or something, and then what I do is I end up Googling it, and then 3 clicks in, next thing you know, I'm dying. You know, but it feels real at that moment. So I'm not judging anyone for having this fear because it's very normal for us. But you have a couple choices when you know these are impacting you. Okay, the first choice is run away. fight or flight, right? The second one is face it and rise above it. Now, there are some things that we can't control that are legitimate fears, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about controlling what you can control. That's actually the first step. Know and determine what it is that you can control versus what you can't control. And when you find yourself worrying about a pandemic or worrying about your job or worrying about if your customers are going to leave you, all that does is distracts you from the things that you need to do, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes, okay? You can't prevent these things from happening, so therefore, there's no need to focus on them other than prepare, okay? Because you can't control what someone else thinks, but you can control how you respond, how you react, how you recover. And those are the most important things to recall when you're talking about this. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to a CEO the other day, and he said, Brian, you know, if you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. But when you squeeze a person, you find out what they're really made of. You know, and I think when we are under intense pressure, a lot of times our true colors come out. And the good news is that if you don't like what's coming out, you can stop and reflect and make that change. You know, it's all about recognizing it. And you can only control your effort and your attitude. And it's really more of a mind shift. And that's really kind of the secret ingredient that we'll talk about. Now, the second thing you could do is focus on your influence. What can you influence? And it's funny because I've talked to a lot of people that are saying things like, well, I don't really have that option. I'm just an employee. Well, to me, a manager is a title. A leader is someone that can influence other people. So the question is, to me, is find out what you can and who you can influence, right? People will follow you if you know with certainty that you have something of value to give. You can influence people. You know, I can tell you right now, things might look really bad, and now's the time to step up and not complain. Now's the time where real leaders will rise. Now, I'm going to say something that may be a little unpopular, but I believe to be true. That is, there's two types of companies that are going to survive this pandemic. And when we come out on the other side, it's going to be the people that hoarded cash and they have the cash and are going to weather the storm, or it's going to be the people that adapt and that really look for ways to be different, innovate. And they're going to come out with market share. And those that are sticking to their guns with, this is our policy and we're not making any moves and we can't, and victim mentality, you're going to go out of business. Okay, so you can jot it down, you know, whatever you want to do, but I'm telling you, that's a pretty powerful statement that I believe to be true. Now, here's the thing. Don't be so consumed with other people's opinions. Just share yours. You do it one time and then move on, right? I want to focus on what I can control. And then finally, look at your fears in terms of identifying what those are. And are they legit? Are they authentic or are they inauthentic? Okay? You got to ask yourself, what am I afraid is going to happen? I mean, seems so simple, doesn't it? You know, are you predicting this catastrophic outcome? Because what I've found is many times what really happens is never even close to what you envisioned would happen. And you know that to be true. Now, it doesn't change the fact, it's like me saying, don't worry about food. Food's going to come and you haven't eaten in a week. You know, fear is a very real thing. And I'll tell you on a personal level, before I get a hate email, I suffered with panic and anxiety attacks my whole life, to the point where I was scared to go to the movies because I was going to die. I was scared to drive across a bridge because there was no place to pull over to have my heart attack and die. So these are irrational fears that I get and understand personally, but you either have to decide to push through and embrace them or hide away. And if that's what you choose to do, that's your choice. That's the beautiful thing. We all have a choice, okay? And I'll tell you, there's some folks right now that are stating things like, they'll use this language. Well, I just don't know what's going to happen with the business, or I can't let my business fail. And what I'm suggesting is that you change the questions that you ask yourself. You change the statements you make to yourself, right? So instead of saying like, well, what if, or I don't know, change it to say, what must I do? What must we say? What must we give in order to prevent our business from failing? That language shift is huge because it changes your thought process, because your mind's only going to do what you say to do. right? So acknowledging that you can handle these worst case scenarios is not only going to make you feel more powerful, you become more powerful. And this isn't this altruistic, oh, tomorrow I'm going to have hair, I just know it. No, I'm bald, I get it. But if we change our mindset, we change our world. Let me give you a little fact check here. And we'll just do United States alone. I wanted to do some research on this. There are over 6 million car accidents a year just in America alone. Now, here's the interesting statistic. Out of those 6 million car accidents annually, over 3 million are injured and over 90 people a day pass away. Now, if you extrapolate that across the world, there are 1.4 million people that die every year from traffic accidents. And they range from speed, DUI, distracted drivers. I think 32%, something like that, was people falling asleep. So let me ask you this question. Why in the world would you get in a car? Just even in America, out of 6 million, you got a 50% chance of getting hurt. Well, it comes down to one word: trust. Right? We have to trust the fact that the other person is going to stay in their lane. They're not going to cross over. They're not going to hit you. You're not going to die. And if we didn't drive, we wouldn't go anywhere, would we? We'd be stuck. We'd be paralyzed. And we can't allow fear to paralyze us from moving forward. We just can't operate in that environment. So even though there may be a good chance statistically that I might be involved in some type of accident, I drive. So now it's time for you to choose. You can choose freeze or fight. You can choose give up or push forward, but that's a choice. And the question is, do you have the courage to leap? Do you have the courage to leap, to trust your gut, to change your uncertainty into a plan? You see, a lot of people are panicking right now. They're retreating. And the reason is because they didn't have a plan. Now, I can't judge that. I mean, it was sudden. It's new. I'm turning 50 years old. I've never seen this my whole life, and you haven't either. But now we're here, and now we got to make that choice. Makes sense, right? Now's the time to innovate. That's a word that we should own as much as we own social distancing. Innovate. And understand this is a mindset, not false hope. Hope is not a strategy. And those that leverage this time on how they innovate their business, how they pivot the way they traditionally did their business, are going to come out stronger. And they're going to come out with market share, and they're going to come out with more bottom line results. Okay. So I got to share this with you too. And this is just me being proud of who we are, but we live in the most amazing country in the world. I believe America is founded on the principles of unity and hard work, and we look after each other, especially when times get tough. My wife is from South Africa, and their unemployment rate is around 29%. That was before the pandemic, 29%. I believe I read that the unemployment for those under 30 is around 50%. Not great odds. And right now they're doing a 21-day that could be extended longer lockdown, and they're not allowed to go out to walk the dog, go get alcohol or cigarettes or go exercise. It's truly home confinement. And here we have a country that's going to help small businesses, stimulus plan, going to help individuals, from the unemployment benefits for those that are impacted, extended out with no extra burden to businesses. Gosh, I mean, this is the country that truly is positioned to go to the next level because of people like you, because we're willing to do what most people are not willing to do. That's just my opinion. But we're a country of individuals that are willing to adapt and quite frankly, make stuff happen. And this won't be the last time that we're faced with this. It certainly hasn't been the first time, and it's going to happen again. And let me just also go back 1 minute. I'm saying America is the greatest country in the world because I live here and I'm proud, but I've also traveled around the world, and I believe most countries I've been to have that same feeling internally, that pride, and that's what you should have. Didn't want anybody thinking, especially my wife, that I was cutting down another country, because they're all lovely. Okay, now, when we talk about this today, I want you to think about it this way. Today is a day that I want you to take a macro perspective of our entire life. That's what this opportunity has given us, right? Now we can micro plan for the moment, but if you think from the macro level, what could you do different? Even personally, take a look at your credit card statement and see what's the crap you have on there that you don't need. This is a time for us to reorganize our lives and to figure out what is most important and prioritize that. You know, we're busy. We have uncertainty, but we also have to embrace the moment, because in the scope of our entire life, this is a blip. It's the same thing as the 2008 recession. It sucked, but we lived. We got through it. You know, personally, you're either going to come out of this also, and, you know, this is a new normal we're dealing with, and you're going to come out 15 pounds heavier, you know, and mentally drained, or you're going to come out fit and you're going to have a plan. And the question is, which one do you want to have? And there's nothing wrong with whatever you decide, but, you know, I would like for you to at least suggest the idea of now's the time to disrupt how you do business. Ooh, we're going to talk about business now, right? The key is to consider disrupting the way you do business. Now, what does that mean? And that means having a micro plan right now to position yourself going forward. And I'll give you a couple examples that I love. Number one, the steakhouse Del Frisco's. Love Del Frisco's. And all restaurants, obviously, were doing the curbside and takeaway and all that, but they went one step further. They started creating family kits where you literally could go and you can place an order for 2 steaks and salad, and sorry if you're vegan, but 2 steaks, a salad, a side, whatever it is, and you pick it up, you take it home, you cook it, they give you the little recipe, they give you the condiments, all the things you need, and you make a family night out of it. Brilliant. What a new concept for a high-end steakhouse who otherwise would have to close the doors. And they went another step. They created Del Frisco's Grocery, you know, where I could actually literally order a dozen eggs, a half a dozen hamburger buns, their super prime, you know, hamburger meat that I can, again, go home and cook just like I would go to a grocery store and have it delivered. Now, a couple of the other high ends have attempted this, but I don't think they've quite nailed it like Del Frisco has. But that's an innovative idea. I have a client in the direct sell business, home-based parties. So you would think at the high level, gosh, they're in real trouble, aren't they? Because it's a home-based party business where you have to have people in your home. But the CEO was innovative. And even before the lockdown, he began to shift the way that their business was going to operate and created social selling. Not only did they not retract, they're actually growing during these times. But it would never happen if we were in the victim mentality. Oh, just it is what it is. Now, the other thing, if you look, there's a Capital Ford here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Rob Satter, who's the principal and the GM there, he said, Brian, you know, I'm really looking for a way to innovate how we serve our customers. And this was actually right before the lockdown. So we innovated and came up with this idea for, as an example, if you're a child and you come in and they ask the little, what's your name, Bobby? Bobby, okay, cool. They go in the back, they get a name tag, junior sales manager, right? They have Bobby, a label maker, goes on, he's wearing a name tag with their logo that you know that kid's gonna take out and wear. But it also made that kid feel important and appreciated. If they see a car coming in for service and it's got a child seat in the back, they want to put a little stuffed animal with the Capital Ford logo on it and put it in the child seat. Then you have to tell the parent, the kid will find it. That's innovative, that's different, and it's really unique. No one does that. Marriott, you know, I am what's called an ambassador elite, which essentially means I stay in hotels more than home. But they are innovating right now. They understand that their most loyal customers are not traveling. So they've decided to extend your status until 2022. You see, that's the thing that's going to create loyalty. And the greedy ones are going to sit there and they're going to say, oh, well, you know, I can't help that. You know, that's just not something that we can deal with at this moment. I'll give you another one. I went through Freddy's, which is a little hamburger place. You drive through a lot of food examples because obviously it's one of the few places we can go. And I ordered a milkshake and she said it's made with custard. And I don't know if I like custard or not. Get around to the drive-through And after she handed our food, she leans in and says, I went ahead and got you a scoop of chocolate and vanilla. And I want you to tell me what you think because you'll be back. It's those opportunities that we can create out there that's going to create not just loyalty, but people are going to remember that and move forward. So I just want you to consider, what are the things that we can do differently in our business that's going to absolutely stay with us going forward? Because I'm hoping that the companies that come up with these cool ideas are going to continue to serve their customers in a creative way. This has forced us to do it. Here's another example, handwritten notes. Here's one I'm getting ready to send out. And I just wrote, hey, I wanted you to know how much I appreciate our partnership. I'm standing here next to you guys and I'm willing to serve until we get through these times. Now, I do these all the time anyway, but the more personal connection that you can create with people, building rapport and standing by them is the key. Because right now there's, it's funny, like I hear people say things like, well, we're closed right now, there's nothing we can do. That's a lie. And it's not a malicious lie, but it's a lie you tell yourself. We have distant learning. We're doing that right now. What kind of value can you give your customers? I think that there are more opportunities than you may believe, but you also have to drown out the bad. And would challenge you got to drown out the good. Because when I stop being influenced by what I believe is a good comment or what I believe is a negative content, that's when I start living. I'm not focused on those others' opinions, because whose opinion really means anything? When you're dead, you're dead. So those opinions are pretty much worthless. So all I really care about is, how can I serve? This is my challenge to you. Take in this moment. Leverage this moment. I believe that, honestly, that I am the best when times are the worst. And it's not because I enjoy bad times, but it's because I know this is an opportunity to stand up and be different. Now there are people out there that are a bit tone deaf right now. They're trying to sell, I think, in a lot of ways that are not right. There's a person that does what I do for a living, and his online training program is it's free. The COVID relief fund, free tuition to do this class. But then you got to put in your credit card, and at the end of 30 days, you get a big bill if you forget to unsubscribe. And that to me is manipulation. Now's the best time to, I think, brand yourself, to create the loyalty, to build the relationships, to have rapport. And when you focus on that, instead of selling the wrong way, I think that you're going to find not only more success long-term, just focus on right now. How can I build my brand? How can I serve? Have humility. Have humility. Step back. Today is a new day. Today's it, man. I don't care what happened yesterday. It is what it is, and I want you right here, right now to say, I'm going to double down. I'm doubling down on me. I'm going all in, and I'm committed to the point to where I know there's nothing more than I can do. That's how committed I am. So another best practice to consider is a to-do list. And I write my little to-do list every day. I'm not fancy, but I write it down on here and I check off as I go through, because you know what? I want a small win. These small wins, if you're working remote, you're working from home, you better have small wins. Otherwise, you're going to wake up in the same clothes 5 days in a row. And it's easy to fall into that trap. And for me, I want to choose today. I choose to live. I choose to be my hardest. And and this is what's most interesting, the meaning of any experience that we have, good or bad, depends on the frame that we put around it. There's an amazing book. It's called A Man's Search for Meaning. It was written by Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor out of Auschwitz. And one of the biggest things I took away from that book was, he said, we can find purpose through suffering. You don't have to suffer to find your purpose, but you can find purpose through suffering. And some of the people that he didn't expect to live through that ordeal lived because they found a meaning to why they were there. Powerful book. Emotional, not a difficult read, but something that I believe most of us can relate to, at least from the perspective of uncertainty and fear. One of the most, I believe, effective tools that we have is that we can choose the frames or choose the meanings. There is no such thing as this is good or this is bad. It's all based on how you interpret what's happening to you, right? And so there's an infinite number of, I think, ways to interpret any situation. And I'm not this, I'm a realist. I'm not suggesting that we are reckless and disregard caution, but also I believe that we can associate positive things and opportunities to be able to grow, both personally and professionally. Now, here's the bottom line. I believe firmly right now, we are in a defining moment in our history. We're in a defining moment. There's going to be survivors and non-survivors of business. And, you know, we've worked really hard and we've worked on our dreams. We've worked on our businesses. And sometimes we see them crumble right before us, right here. Would have never thought that this person would have lost their job, but they did. But this is the time, and this is why we must come together. We must come together, not just to support, but to collaborate, to mastermind, to come up with ideas that are going to drive our business to the next level, to make us stronger. You know, I think that instead of falling into the trap of telling people what they want to hear, we need to tell people what they need to hear. You know, it's easy to get caught up on the phone. How are things? Well, you know, it's really hard right now, Brian. Okay, well, how's that going to help you with your business? No, I'm not telling you to lie, but say, look, you know, things are hard, but you know what? We're pushing forward. We're driving. We're creating more meaningful relationships with our partners, our customers. And I want to say thank you for being a part of that. So again, at the end of the day, our moment is now. And the question is, are you ready to seize it? Thanks for joining me. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Brian Parsley Speaker. And obviously put a lot of content out there to serve and to help. And I hope to get to see you in the near future. Have a great day.